Which were previously distributed. Any comments or clarifications needed on the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The meeting minutes are adopted. Next, we'll move into our public comment period. And why don't we just start with Mrs. Tyndall? You ready? Or we could go, we have some folks on the phone that we could go there, but if you're ready, we'll defer to you since you're here in person. Again, as you make your way up to the lectern there, we have 3 minutes, and so we appreciate you being here today. Turn it over to you.
Thank you.
See the timer.
I'll give you some.
DUAB members, as a 1966 Gary Roosevelt High School graduate, one of over 600, and as an advocate for high quality and equitable education of all students of Gary Community School Corporation. I associate and hope that you will begin to associate and engage, include in your manner of handling the Gary School Corporation such terms as excellence, high expectations, adequate advanced participation, preparation, intentional care, and global competition readiness for Gary students. We don't see evidence, we don't see overall evidence of those factors or just characteristics being present today, and we'd like those included. Such concerns as having Gary as the DUAB meeting place, inferior food availability, toilet facilities yet inadequate, non-functioning swimming pool, a new middle school and field house construction, quality e-learning tools with support, certified qualified teachers, irresponsible spending of millions of dollars, irresponsible, unproductive handling of educating our children, our students. Gary Community School Corporation continuing to present untrue statements to the DUAB board. Current audit of all monies that have been placed in the hands of DUAB, MGT, and the Gary Recovery LLC, and any associated group. And entities involved in the Gary Community School Corporation takeover effective August 17th to the present day. Addressing illogical premise, reducing the number of hours per day of classroom time, reducing the number of full day days of school attendance, random scheduling of quote, no school, unquote, days, all for a favored school system. It just seems illogical that there would be any time allowed for a break in the regular school schedule.
You can finish your thought, but we're at 3, but you go ahead and finish your presentation.
in the future, can I see my tab for
You
myself?
bet, you finish what's on your page.
Thank you. 30 to 38 students in a classroom, with failing students and one teacher. No, excuse me. Lack of transparency regarding dollars, grades, and graduation details. Student, total parental inclusion and respect, and student disrespect. These are the concerns that continue before us, that have been presented before you, and still remain unresolved. We want Erie community questions to be answered, and our frustration with the DUAB and MGT, and requests and opinions to be addressed. We want our input to be encouraged and respected. We want you to resolve, plan, move to have the Erie Community School Corporation reap benefits from your involvement with us, rather than working to what appears to our demise. The terms I want you to leave you with today are resolve, reflect, goals of good, restore, total local control as being our goal, replace MGT with GCSC, and instead of chains, more books. Instead of jumpsuits with numbers, we'd like to see our children, and have you see our children as children that can possibly have university shirts with the letters of that university on their shirts. We want you to look at our children in a positive, wholesome way and work to the good of our children, you and those that you are supervising at Erie Community School Corporation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Attorney Tracy Coleman. Attorney Coleman? I want to check your mute button possibly, Attorney Coleman.
To that other
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. They had to unmute me from your end. First of all, I would like to thank you for allowing me to make public comments. First, I would ask that DUAB stop the reconfiguration. MGT and Dr. Razor should not be making major decisions on their way out the door. MGT took the school corporation from a K-8 configuration to the middle school configuration that exists now. And with this reconfiguration that MGT instituted, we saw a downward academic spiral. We need our own superintendent and governing body who should be allowed to make any decisions regarding reconfiguration and make the decisions on how to best address the academic crisis and attendance crisis that our school system is facing under state takeover. In 2022, only 7.7% of Gary's children were proficient in English language arts, and only 3.5% were proficient in math. In addition to the academic crisis, the attendance crisis our children are facing is overwhelming. 76.42% of the students at Beveridge, 95.63% of the students at Bailey Middle School, and 90.08% of the students at Westside Leadership Academy were chronically absent in 2022. We have to be allowed as a community to come together with our own superintendent and our own governing body to address the academic attendance crisis and other problems that our children are facing. I would ask that DUAB use its power under Indiana Code 6-1.1-20.3-6.8 to permanently suspend the common school loans payments. This statute says the Distress Unit Appeal Board may delay or suspend for a period determined by the board any payments or principal or interest or both that will otherwise be due from the school corporation on loans or advances from the Common School Loan Fund. That is something in DUAB's power. It's morally right and it's fiscally responsible to permanently suspend the common school loan payments of the Gary Community School Corporation. In life, if any governmental entity or individual went through a bankruptcy, once they come out of that bankruptcy, they're given a discharge. There was a time in America's history that there were debtors' prisons and people were punished because of debt. I'm asking DUAB to not punish the Gary Community School Corporation, but to put our community in a better position after this takeover ends so that our community will have the resources to address its capital needs, such as building a field house by Westside Leadership Academy, possibly a freshman academy, improving restrooms, and other capital improvements that need to be made. I would like to thank you for this opportunity and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Attorney Coleman. Next, we have Angela Lockett. Angela, can you, we can't hear you. Might want to check your mute link.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Angela Lockett, and I am a parent of a student at Gary Middle School. I am coming to you today to speak in opposition of the consolidation of the 7th and 8th grade at Bailey and Gary Middle School to Westside Leadership Academy. Our students will not thrive. I believe our students will not thrive in that environment until such time that academics and security are addressed, and corralling them all together within that one building will not address that, but will make, I believe, more students leave the district. I think the focus should be on how to bring more students to the district versus consolidating to save money. You can have more money with more students, and that can be done with the focus on academics and the security within the schools. I would like to see that MGT does not make this decision, but leaves it to the school board and the superintendent, and essentially up to the community which way we should move going forward. I think that that is only the fair and reasonable thing to do. My understanding, and perhaps I'm wrong and I'd love to be wrong, is that this decision is based simply on saving money, but not on any statistical data which will show the number of students that we may drop if this consolidation is done, as well as no statistics to show how to bring more students into the district. So I am coming to you today to speak against the consolidation and ask that DUAB and MGT do not move forward with this plan, but leave it up to the incoming board and the superintendent to decide how to move the Gary Community School Corporation forward, as doing this consolidation, I believe, will lead to less students in the district. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else here or online wishing to speak? We do not, so we'll move on with our agenda. Next is an operations update, Gary Community School Corporation.
Good
Dr.
afternoon.
Razor.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. We have, as was shared in previous meetings, have shared proposals with the community and with the board regarding potential reconfigurations, really due to 3 factors. 1 being underutilization of our facilities, 2 being poor academic results in our middle schools, as well as, along with that, a major drop off when middle school happens. So we lose kids from 5th to 6th grade, and then we lose even worse, kids from 6th to 7th grade. And finally, financial implications of that as it pertains to a 5-year forecast, or even out further than that, of what operating more buildings than we can operationally sustain brings. As you heard in public comment, we've gotten feedback around security. Another feedback we've gotten around that has been positive is about the programmatic opportunities we can provide through an economy of scale of having more teachers in one building, having more students in one building. And what we want to do, although with 4,000 kids in 10 schools, the math is pretty easy to do. We want to, I don't want to call it a pause, but we want to take time to play out every potential scenario to make the district operationally and academically what I would call future-proofed, or kind of do what I would say is a waterproof test on things, and make sure that we've played out every scenario. So we hope to come to do it first, as Mr. Dalton will share later. We're going to share an update on our fund reconciliation. So we want to come first with our funds. Then we want to come with a look back at our budget and our spend, and we're doing a deep dive into what we spend operationally, academically, versus what we should be spending, and making sure that those two are coherent. You know, because the very definition of deferred maintenance is it was maintenance that was supposed to have been done or should have been done that wasn't done because there weren't funds to do it. So we want to come forward on every possible scenario. So what I'm talking about is current state, nothing changes here over the next 5 years is what that would look like. With a junior, senior high configuration, here's what that would look like. With one junior high, here's what that would look like. And with, you know, another scenario that we talked about was, what if we just moved early childhood out of Bethune, which is one of our buildings that has a lot of deferred maintenance, into all the elementary schools? What are the financial implications? And then, but what I want to come back to is, it's always at first, we should look at what the impact to students are and what the impact to academic opportunity and academic achievement are, and what we're doing around those as well. So I know when I spoke to you last, I was talking about probably December. We think to get all that together, it's probably going to be January, because, you know, one of the questions that we do get a lot is, why now? And we're under an obligation to make sure that the 5-year forecast shows sustainability. But we're also in a great position with the opportunity we have with the unallocated ESSER funds to provide the professional development, to provide the building modifications that might be necessary if whatever move we make, we're going to make. So that's where we stand with that. And I wanted to just basically give a preview or a spoiler that next month, we're not going to come to you with a recommendation. We're going to take time to deep dive into things. And I'm not making promises about January, but that's when we think we could come forth with what we think at that point is the best step forward.
Thank you. Any questions on this? A reconfiguration update? So if a target is January, and again, not holding you to that, but appreciate the update. What might we be looking at, though, as far as reviewing preliminary data or some of this, the funds or projected spending under the various scenarios? It looks like you were going to do the comparison of current state versus other
Yes.
scenarios. Is there at least a preliminary look possible in December?
Potentially, well, we will come to you next month, and we're very pleased. I don't want to steal all of Mr. Dalton's speech. We're very pleased with the progress we've made on fund reconciliation. We'll come at that point, because, and right now, again, completely taking his presentation. We feel pretty reconciled, to use that term. Now it's given the freedom we have to put funds where we feel like they should be. That's where we'll come forward at that point. We could give a preview on where we're at next month to run all the scenarios. The data's coming in pretty good. Again, I don't want to hold myself down, but I will definitely update in December where we stand and what things are looking like.
Okay. Well, obviously, an important decision on the next 5 years and considering all the factors that go into it. But you know, obviously with the ESSER funds have a timeline, and then also the a new board coming on. We also need to move in a deliberate fashion as well, so we appreciate that.
I do want to say that just for DUAB here, for the Gary community here, doing everything in very close collaboration with the school board. Not going to make a decision that puts them in any position they don't want to be in come July 1.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Razor, Dr. Razor? Okay. Well, we can move on to collective bargaining agreement.
The Gary Teachers Union and Gary Community School Corporation have reached an agreement, for a 2-year agreement, which is frankly unprecedented. It's been well over 10 years since anyone can recall an agreement that has been a 2-year agreement. One of the reasons for doing a 2-year agreement is so that wasn't something that a new superintendent, new school board have to walk into right off the bat. Also, we feel it is vitally important in Gary Community Schools to be competitive, to recruit and retain the best teachers we can, and make Gary Community Schools an attractive place to come to work. Some highlights of the agreement, which I know you have in front of you, to hit the major bullet points. Teachers will be receiving a $7,000 stipend, all teachers, next year, in lieu of a cost of living increase, but we're able to provide that through ESSER funds. So that's not a recurring expense upon the district. Next year, teachers will be receiving a 2% cost of living increase, which we had already built into our 5-year forecast as it was presented to DUAB earlier, as well as a $5,000 stipend. In addition to negotiating with the teachers, the Gary Teachers Association, the Gary Teachers Union also represents our paraprofessionals. Paraprofessionals received a $2,500 stipend for work done last school year as part of this agreement. A $2,500. I said $2,500 before, didn't I? Okay. A $2,500 stipend for this school year, and a 2% cost of living and $2,000 stipend for next year as well.
We'd like to ask some questions
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely.
You wanna ask
Any
first?
questions?
Yeah, I have questions. Throughout the agreement, this is a 2-year agreement, it references the manager, including for year 2, as a cleanup option, you should, sorry, just the legal part of me coming out. Year 2 of this agreement, the manager won't be in place, so just adding that.
Absolutely.
Slash superintendent probably
Yeah.
would be sufficient. Secondly, a little concerned about, I think the stipends and everything and the agreement on the amount is great. I love it. I love the fact that it's a uniform amount, which will front load some of the younger teachers.
Yes.
I've been in that scenario before. I think that's an ability to recruit, retain. How you're paying that out, I would defer to maybe Mr. Joyce. If a teacher leaves, I believe that you would be responsible for pulling that money back.
We're gonna have you ask for it back.
Okay.
I mean,
Because you're paying it up front in October, and if that teacher leaves before, like, the contract is over in June 30th, they have not earned all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really hanging a big liability over a lot of people. So, I mean, you could literally pay it out and 2 weeks later, somebody leave and money's coming back.
One scenario I did, I paid at the end of each semester. Okay.
And we had actually talked about that for next year, and then given the way ESSER funds have to be allocated and spent.
Yeah.
But, that's really good, really good.
I just don't want you to get caught in a scenario where the council's gonna come back after the fact, that after ESSER funds are all spent.
And they
you're gonna have to
will,
Pay that back, and that would have to be paid back out of education funds.
and then they will have to send it back to the federal government. I mean, yeah, it's no longer gonna be utilized. Because it's not an expense, it's.
Yeah.
Once they leave, and the individuals should be well aware of that too. If they leave employment, they're gonna have to pay it back.
So I know something that we've done in the past with stipends is everyone had to sign an agreement. Would that be your guidance
I
that,
mean, I'm not an attorney, I'm a CPA, so I'm just saying from my standpoint, I don't wanna give any kind of legal anything, all right? From our standpoint, you don't earn it until you've actually earned it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I would do that between you and your legal counsel
sure,
on the proper earnings of that. But, you know, where you get that money coming from is another story. I get why you want to front load it. I think it's great. There's lots of reasons. I agree, you know, especially for young teachers, young people, it gets money out there. It actually could help retain people and get them to stay there longer.
yeah,
I understand the concept. It's not unusual in schools where you pay them, over a period of time, but, if they leave, you actually sometimes end up into the contract have to recoup a little of that money because it spread that out over a period of time and earned it, so that's not unusual. It's just they need to be made aware that it's not that clear in in this contract that's the case. It's not a one-time bonus. And you could read it that way, and some people could read it that way. I just want, they need to be made aware of that.
I don't want to discourage that we're not in favor of the way it's given. I just think the mechanics can come back and hurt the school corporation after the fact.
that's very good guidance.
If I may interrupt, I would like to welcome Senator Paul to the DUAB. Welcome.
Thank you.
Looking forward to your participation. Just to get you caught up to where we are, we're on agenda item 5. And we're discussing the collective bargaining agreement. Any other questions or comments at this point? I think I'm going to put Emily possibly on the spot here. As far as with what we've heard, as far as the comments, and I am not sure, familiar with the timing and when things need to be executed. I guess possibly there's two paths here of entertaining a motion if one is made with these, requiring these amendments, or I guess we could turn it back to MGT to work with the union representatives on correcting these or adding these provisions into the agreement.
Can I ask a question, Emily? I mean, is the terminology a stipend or a one-time bonus? I mean, can ESSER funds be used for a bonus in that sense?
So the terminology, I think all of the things that the board is talking about are the recommendations to them for consideration. We're all going to have a similar result. Whatever the recommendation is from the board, it's going to be the same, but I'm going to preface the answer to the question with a question of my own. I know that the deadline for submission through was yesterday. And so some of it that depends on what all was reported by the school at that point. Because if it was reported as there's an agreement that's been reached, but it's pending approval of the board, it's going to go into the category of what the
Impasse.
Yes, the impasse. And so there's a 30-day clock that happens before a mediator is signed to the school corporation. If at any time you get the approval from the board that this contingent upon whether it's just outright today or the board says we would like for you to consider X, Y, and Z, whether it's an addendum or attachment or something that is done within X number of days, reporting to the board, it's contingent upon that, as long as the official approval that is needed, it's done within that 30-day window, it'll just change, you're going to take it off of the roles of being assigned a mediator and it'll just go away. Now, because the deadline was yesterday and the time clock has started, depending on what verification or validation the board wants or feels appropriate for the things they've discussed, could determine the feasibility of getting that accomplished with verification from the school corporation within a 30-day window. That makes sense.
And I don't want to speak, sorry, I don't want to speak for Ms. Dunham with the teachers union, but these were all things, the things you brought up were all things that were discussed.
I would think it would seem
Everybody-
logical in
Yeah.
its own right. I think it would just be something that would be memorialized within writing,
Yeah,
you know, seems logical. I mean, you should be employed to receive this stipend.
yeah, and I'd be willing to bring forth our recommendation with these.
We're
Yeah.
very supportive of the stipend, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. We just want to make sure that we memorialize the process.
Yeah, and so I think probably those feasible options in the window of time, the board wanted to a contingent approval based on the completion of a next step. It would probably be contingent upon confirmation with the individual, but there's an agreement to further write down and figure out how in operational measures the agreed upon stipend amount will be allocated to teachers. If they're okay with that, and that's something that you don't have to have all parties and have everything drafted up in a 30-day window, probably more likely if you get that in writing and email, that can be feasibly done in the next couple of days.
I think it doesn't change the structure.
And one of the things that we did, any distributions that would be pulled back or not, or in essence, they didn't earn because they left early, would then be pro rata distributed back to those teachers that were still employed. And then the teacher union, at least when I was working with them, they saw that as a nice incentive.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna move dollars if somebody leaves, you're gonna continue to distribute those to those that are there.
Yeah.
I think Paul raised the issue about the use of ESSER funds for this particular purpose. I'm gonna ask Tracy Brown to weigh in on it.
Well, and I was gonna ask a question. I didn't realize this was ESSER funded, or I would have done a little homework on it. So I apologize for that. Have there been conversations with the title grants team at DOE in terms of the allowability of ESSER in advance? The timing of the October one is the one I'm concerned about. You know, to Paul's point and others, if it's a stipend for work to be performed during the rest of the school year, I want to make sure that's allowable under ESSER. Since ESSER ends on September 30, so.
Yes. And we were very technical with the use of ESSER, making sure that it was not, for work that's going to be done, that it was work that had been done. So teachers who had been employed before this date.
My only concern then, it references the 24-25 school year though. And we're paying it out at the beginning of the school year. I just want to make sure we're in good shape there. So maybe a conversation with her.
I agree, because this is for that year.
Right.
I would say it's,
So it appears,
paying
at
it
least this
forward.
document, it's being paid in advance of work being. So we need to clarify that. a bit.
Sure.
This is the obligation versus spend, or when you can actually, pay things out is not only applies to ESSER, but a lot of these federal funds that are in play right now. And I can't speak to ESSER, but I do know that in the sum of, this is a topic that just the US Treasury, I think, just came out with rules on funds that are coming to the states about if you meet the obligation date, but for future expenses that may even go beyond what is the spend by date of the end of 2026, they're reconsidering that as well. So I think it's,
And we can definitely change the terminology if that is the issue, because basically it's a retention reward for having worked through the 23-24 and the learning loss recovery that is taking place with that.
Okay.
And I don't want to speak for Ms. Dunham. I want to be very clear to that, but I don't see any of these, we have very, excuse me, very productive and collaborative negotiations. I don't think any of these recommendations would, as, excuse me, as Emily said, if there can be contingent approval, we can definitely get back to the board that we've checked all these things off.
I would also encourage the school that if there are discussions that happen after any kind of approval is granted by the board, terminology, if it's just operational pieces, that the school corporation also be in contact with her and then council just over there to make sure that there are no concerns from their perspective about what details that are additional after that. At what point is it too much without like the scope of the agreement that was reached between the parties? So I'm not the expert on that, so I would defer to the expert.
Do we want it to come back to the board, or can we do conditional approval to allow Pete to approve it? Assuming he's satisfied with these changes we discussed.
So I think that's something for, we can discuss. Let me first run through what I think are the follow-up items. Amendment of the term manager after an effective date or beyond, I guess reference probably to the school board other than manager after that effective date. The clarity regarding stipend recovery with, I'll just say departure prior to the end of or expiration of the agreement. Confirmation on the ability to use ESSER. And then just sort of a communication requirement that all this is we're keeping Herb updated with the progress of all those things. So with that, I'm hearing that we could entertain a motion to approve contingent on satisfactory resolution of these items with either, I guess, coming back to this board, or we could have delegate that to the executive director. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, if you were looking for a motion, I would move to contingently approve agreement, given the items that you just mentioned. And assuming that the executive director is satisfied that those items have been properly addressed within the agreement, give him the authority to finally approve.
There's a motion with those contingencies. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any further comments or questions?
I did have one question.
Yes, sir.
So did you, if I'm understanding, I apologize for being late. The portion that you were talking about was the confirmation of being able to use the ESSER funds, and that's I'm assuming for the stipend, the $5,000 and the $7,000 stipend. In the event that it's determined that you cannot use those funds for stipends. Essentially, essentially, we're approving this agreement. It's money that's going to be paid to those teachers regardless. It's just, we're gonna have to find different funds, or is that going to wipe out the stipend provision completely?
We would have to find different funds. It would be our first intention. We do in our current ESSER plan have stipends allocated that can cover the teacher stipends. So there is a stipend allocation already.
Thank you.
Get a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's right, David. There aren't any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is adopted. Again, I think the message from DUAB is good work, good, the elements of the collective bargaining agreement are very positive in moving forward. Just have some follow-up.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have financial update. So we alluded to a little bit of the fund reconciliation, so.
Sure.
I'll just jump in with that. As Dr. Razor alluded to earlier, we are working to reconcile a whole lot of the books, a whole lot of the funds in hopes that we can ultimately give the clean slate books to the incoming board. That's one of my biggest draws to accomplishing this before the end of this year. So next month, we will be showing up with a resolution for DUAB's approval that shows all of the funds that we will be negating the deficits in, bringing those back to zero, and then where we will be taking those, where we will be transferred from. So it's a work in progress over the last couple of months. We have been charting back through all the various funds that need adjustments, and a month from today, roughly a month from today, we will have a clean resolution. And so the purpose of this is just to inform you that we will be coming and asking you for approval next month to reconcile certain funds. So if there's any more detailed questions, that was very high level. But if you have any more detailed questions, I'd be happy to answer.
From the state board of accounts perspective, it's just a formal action that's taken by the board. The recommendations will be presented and the record that will be reflected in board minutes adequate to for that reconciliation.
Yes.
And we need something signed, so there's no need to.
Will there still be negative balances left?
There always will be certain grant schedules.
I mean, other than
based
funds
on
that are
reimbursement
still to be
timing.
funded? Okay.
So we're trying to negate, we're trying to reconcile the ones that we know we can, the ones that we can.
Yeah, as Daniel said, only the balances that run negative balances until they get refunded through the appropriations that we receive, so.
And certain state and federal grant funds will all work on kind of different timelines. Spend it now, you don't get reimbursed for a month or a couple months. So the fund schedule looks different every single month. Just
So to a certain extent, you should be able to identify what ones those are.
Yes.
Because you have future funding from those, so.
Yes.
I
And we do
mean, are
have,
there any that you won't be able to identify?
no, and the
I
research
mean, that
we've
should be
done.
the goal of that, at that
Yes.
point.
Yeah, and I can confidently tell you today, the research we've done tells me there's not a single fund in here that we won't be able to
That's,
reconcile.
that's it. Ideally, we'd like to turn them over with a clean fund balance that they can then go forward with and have at least zero funds to, positive fund balance to move forward. Or identifiable funds.
Right.
And when we're very, very grateful to have the ability to fund a rainy day fund through some of this reconciliation, as well as, the freedom we've been given to move bounds.
Well, we're looking forward to that. And again, that sounds like that will lay the groundwork for the future discussions
Yes.
as far as what I don't want to call it policy, but targets for what balances should be for at least the major funds. And so thank you very much for your work on that. Next, we have a couple of items on the ESSER 3 plan revision and the 1065 revisions. I will ask Pete to cover that.
So later in the agenda, there's a consideration for a contractual obligation, which is being funded with ESSER $3, which would mean a change in the plan for how those ESSER dollars will be spent. So the board, you've got in front of you how the school is proposing to reallocate dollars from its existing plan. So you see 5 different places where the line item is being reduced. And then a total of 303,585 is being proposed for this virtual tutoring. So it's asking for a vote from the board to approve that change in the ESSER 3 plan.
Order of operation. Take consideration for contract before you would do any voting on the approval of the ESSER 3 plan revisions, because the approving one before approving the other.
We could do that. We could table that and bring it back up after the contract. I was going to add the comment that this vote on the plan does not negate approving or considering the contract,
We could also do that.
Okay.
If we should prefer.
but why don't we do that? We'll move, the ESSER plan revision following the consideration of the contractual obligation
Great.
on Agenda 8. So we have review of changes to the 1065 school improvement plan.
Yeah, not really changes,
Okay.
but this is something we do monthly. I apologize, it's my oversight for leaving that on the agenda, but not a surprise. We do this monthly, looking at the docket from what was spent for school improvement fund projects. We've only got 3 transactions from October, which are there in the packet, totaling $59,833. So looking for approval from the board for how those dollars are spent.
Any questions for Pete on these 1065 claims? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the amendment or approve these claims?
Make a motion to approve the claim for $59,833.
Thank you. Is there a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The claims are approved. Next, we have agenda item 7 is a review of the approval of a contract for security purposes. Pete?
So there's been one contract in the last month that I have approved or authorized for the school to spend. As you know, there's several vacant buildings still under the ownership of the school corporation, and in particular, interest in historical values. Roosevelt, the school system currently has internal personnel that provide security for that building, but came across an opportunity with a vendor to provide some additional barrier to enter to the building. This company has some systems that have some barriers over the doors and windows, and school district thinks that this would be a positive to make those buildings even more secure. Total cost for a 12-month rental of this equipment is $38,065, and the check was paid for out of the operations fund. Again, there's already local funds and being spent on security, and so this would allow those resources to be reallocated as well.
Thank you. And this is just a report, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I've already agreed.
We've delegated you that authority. Thank you. Next up, we will move to the contractual obligation, consideration of contract with Latera Education. You may recall last month with the operations and academic update, we talked about high impact tutoring. And so MGT has been researching this opportunity of how to find the right partner and be able to implement that for a broad range of students. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mavis Nelson to give us some background on this particular opportunity.
Great, thank you. Thank you all. As Mr. Johnston mentioned, we did talk about this a little bit during the last academic update at last month's meeting, but as a refresher, high impact tutoring is probably one of, if not the most promising areas of research that have come out, particularly from the COVID-19 pandemic, in terms of how to address learning loss. There was some research happening prior to that, but it's escalated as we've gotten a little bit more serious about, how can we really address some of these student gaps. So when we talk about high impact tutoring, there's quite a bit of research base showing that when tutoring is done in a couple of specific ways, which I'll detail, it has a really impressive effect size on student learning, which is unsurprising, right? This is something that has been done, by parents for many years. You've got a student who's behind, you need somebody to sit down with them one-on-one and really walk them through what they're missing, somebody with some content expertise who can back up and fill in the gaps along the way. So it makes logical sense. But there are some challenges to implementation that have prevented it from becoming more widespread. So when we talk about high impact tutoring, what the research shows is that a few things need to be true in order for it to have the effect size that, we're looking for. Those things are A, it needs to be embedded in the school day. So this is not an after school model. It's something that is embedded in instruction. There are two reasons for that. One, we know that when we offer something after school, we're automatically sorting some of our students out, right? Whether that's for transportation reasons, we know that many of our students have responsibilities at home, whether that's work or looking after siblings. So we're automatically ruling out some of our students and often some of our neediest students when we work with an after school model. In addition, embedding it in the school day allows it to be more integrated with day-to-day instruction. Tutoring is most effective when it is talking to the instruction that kids are receiving during the day. So for example, in an Algebra 1 class, if students are going through grade level content and then they have a tutor who can help them kind of process what they're missing, back up and plug some of the holes that are maybe preventing them from being successful in grade level content, it's more effective than if they just are unsuccessful in class and then doing something separate after school that's maybe loosely related but not intertwined. So that's one. Having it be with a consistent tutor that meets with them frequently. So what the research is showing that it needs to be minimum 3 times a week for 30 minutes in order to be effective. And there's a consistent tutor. So it's not kind of a revolving door of people who come in, that they're able to actually make relationships, which we know are essential to student learning. As you can imagine, some of the barriers to implementation that I alluded to include price. So being able to get tutors who can come consistently and work with kids is an expensive proposition. And just the logistics of embedding during the school day can be tricky, things like master scheduling. However, we know that the effect is high, and we know that students in Gary really need this level of support. So in the contract to get to the contract that's in front of you, there are a couple of universities that are putting out the majority of the research around high impact tutoring. One of those is the University of Chicago. Given its proximity to Gary, that's where I started in terms of asking, how we could get this going. They recommended a few different options. In particular, one that we found compelling is that there's a growing research base around the effectiveness of virtual tutors. We all know that virtual instruction, when it's one teacher to 30 students on Zoom, isn't super effective. However, one-on-one can have a much higher effect. And so there's a growing research base that this is actually kind of a more potentially sustainable and scalable model to implement high impact tutoring. That was particularly compelling because tutoring efforts in Gary in the past have failed because it is just difficult to get people here. We already have a teacher shortage. There's not a lot of folks who can provide tutoring in person in Gary and who will come here consistently. So the virtual piece was compelling. They recommended a few organizations, and the only one that was able to source tutors this year is Latera. They have a really unique platform, and their acceptance rate for tutors is extremely low, something like 8%. So it's a competitive application to become a tutor. They have real content experts who would be working with our kids. Those are some of the reasons why we're proposing this partnership with Latera. It is designed as a pilot program, so we would work with just 3 grade levels this year: 3rd grade, 6th grade, and 9th grade, half of the students in each of those grade levels. And we'll use that to kind of study the effectiveness. And if it has the impact that we're hoping for, the hope is to scale up next year and actually join the UChicago research study so that we can continue to receive some external support and hopefully external funding once ESSER runs out.
Thank you. Any questions for Mavis?
I have one question. What is combat learning loss?
So the idea is that this tutoring will help. I mean, combat is kind of maybe an overly aggressive term, but the idea is that it is.
That's the verb.
It's a verb, not a verb.
I'm trying to work military back.
I think we got it, Mavis.
Yeah. Ian's motivated. I do have a question, Mavis. How will the delivery of the services be monitored? Will the Latera provide like weekly reports or monthly reports on sessions held, number of students connected, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. That's one of the really unique value adds of Latera. They have a dashboard that we can access at any time that tells us like sessions attended, how much time students spent with their tutor. The students actually rate their tutor after each session, so we're able to see a bunch of data like that, some data on performance. As you can imagine, they're giving a lot of formative assessment all the time. And one thing that they do that I really like is while you can access that data anytime, they push out a report every week to principals and district administration so that we can monitor it really closely and see like, are students showing up for their sessions? We have a classroom where no students are showing up. We need to go talk to the teacher and see what the barrier is there. So I appreciate that they kind of push out really frequent reports too, so that we can quickly make the change, as well as being able to access that data real time.
Okay, great.
And I will say that's another part of the logic behind the pilot is by picking a narrower set of classrooms, we'll be able to really monitor and make sure it's implemented well before we start scaling up.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with Latera as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Is your ESER plan change embedded in that?
Oh,
No, we'll take that up
That's
separately.
okay.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the contract, entering into the contract with Terra Education for virtual tutoring. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is adopted. We'll also then take up what Pete had previously described as far as adjustments to the ESER 3 plan to accommodate the funding of this contract. Is there a motion for the revision to the ESER 3 plan?
I move that we approve the revision to the ESER 3 plan.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. There aren't any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Funding plan is adopted as well. Very good.
Thank you.
Is there any other business or new business to come before the board this afternoon?
Are you opening it up to any questions for the school district at this point? Or I know that I missed earlier, so I didn't know if I missed the opportunity to ask a couple questions about, some of the aspects of the current state of the school, some of the funds, like we were talking a lot about ESRA, talking a lot about, and I guess this is more of an overall question since I'm kind of trying to get acclimated. I mean, is there any division on, how much each school has to pay, or sorry, how much it has to spend for ESRA, or is that just the district as a whole? Are those numbers that we actually have?
Not right now, off the top of my head, but it's both.
Okay.
Schools have been given ESSER funds, but then we also have district level that we can then put into the schools.
Has that been released at all, or is that information that we have?
It's information I can get to you.
Okay.
I already presented the amendment, but I will make sure you have the full spreadsheet that shows how all of their ESER 3 money has been spent.
And then, as far as like some of the state of the schools, like West Side, like I've heard issues about the swimming pool and bathrooms. Are those projects part of ESER funds being spent, or is that,
Bathrooms are being taken care of. That is either ESER or 1065 money, which you state common loan school suspension being used for capital projects. Swimming pool is something we're still currently evaluating. It's a very antiquated pool. The money that was allocated was not nearly enough initially once it was dug into. So that's still up in the air. Not a critical to mission type of thing. Bathrooms were actually the bathrooms were actually a condition of poor deferred maintenance not being done, roof leaks, HVAC leaks, bathrooms. So, but the bathrooms are currently being renovated. And there are, just to be clear, there are adequate restroom facilities for all of our students all of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I mean, right now it's my understanding that the accounting is done on kind of a cash basis. You know, do you guys have an accounting on an accrual basis, something that like can demonstrate? Okay,
Yeah, cash basis.
cash basis, sounds like, okay. I think that's all I have for, but yeah, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much. Anything else come before the board today? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.